Hi, I'm Charles Deering, and this is Charles Deering's Scroll Saw 101. This episode will be the anatomy of a scroll saw. Let's get started. This particular saw is a Hegner 22-inch. It can be bought at advmachinery.com. Now this is the only one I can show you because I don't have any others to compare it to, but I will try to leave you links in the description showing you other scroll saws that may potentially be discussed. Some scroll saw parts and names are universal, some are specific to the Hegner, and I will point those out as I go. This is your upper blade clamp. Now this particular design and setup is specific to Hegner. The purpose of an upper blade clamp is to hold the top of the scroll saw blade. Every scroll saw blade manufactured is 5 inches long. Now on this particular model you may be noticing this little knob that's only to hold this clamp into place, and this is an aftermarket for the Hegner. This whole little setup is called the quick clamp, I believe. This is the tension lever that's slightly above and behind the part I just showed you. The purpose of that is to keep tension on the scroll saw blade. There will be little to no play at all in the scroll saw blade, and I'll show you me clamping up a blade as soon as I get done with the anatomy. This part is the tension knob. After you've pulled the tension lever back, you can use this knob to loosen or tighten the tension on the blade. Now, I only use spiral blades, that's all I've ever used, but I think the sound is pretty universal of what a properly tensioned blade sounds like, and I will show you that when I show you how to tension the blade. Below the scroll saw table, which is right here, you're seeing the little bit of it. It's a variable speed scroll saw, meaning that the speed of it is adjustable, and I'll show you that when I show you after I tension the blade. The power switch with a dust cover so it lasts longer that way. If you want to bevel your table either direction, that's what this is for, and there, obviously you can see there's marks on there. I use the bevel gauge when I'm angling my table, which is rare except for maybe the occasional bowl or vase, which can be done on a scroll saw, and you can find that in one of my older videos. This is your lower blade clamp right in here in this little cradle. This is another design that's specific to the Hegner. I don't know what the technical name is for it, but I call this part a cam. This blue portion you see is the lower arm of the scroll saw. Now when that's going up and down, which again I'll show you later, it compresses and releases this bellow, and that forces air through a tube, which I'll show you here shortly, and that helps with clearing dust out of your cutting path. This is the upper scroll saw arm, and this is the tube I was referring to, which I'll show you in a wider angle here shortly. It comes from that bellow into the top of the scroll saw arm, which I'll give you a close-up now. Again, this is the tube I was referring to, and this is where it ends up. It blows just about 2 inches behind the scroll saw. Here we have the lower and the upper pivot points, and these need to be oiled according to the manual. Please consult your manual to find out the care and maintenance of your scroll saw. Now there's already a blade in the saw, and here shortly I'll show you how to put it in the upper blade clamp and tension it. On the Hegner, you can get as many as you'd like of these clamps. This is the lower blade clamp. It looks just like the upper with a few slight differences. And depending on how many you can get, you can have that many blades ready to go. Again, this is a spiral blade. I don't know how well you can see that, but I use number 3 and number 5 Flying Dutchman with a flat end. Those can be gotten at woodenteddybear.com or mikesworkshop.com. Now let me put the blade in the clamp and pluck the blade, and that sound that you're going to hear is the one that you want to hear. How blades are clamped and how tension is done does differ per scroll saw, but this is how mine is done. Now if this were to be loose, which it still might be, I haven't plucked the blade yet, I would turn this to the right. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now this is the sound you want to hear. That is the sound of a properly tensioned scroll saw blade. As you can see, it's not a very noisy saw. I'm talking a little bit loud because of the vibration. My shop has a wooden floor. And now it's going very, very fast. I don't know what the shutter speed is showing like on the camera, but it's, as I was saying, it compresses and releases the bellow down there to blow air under here. And one thing I'd like to say about any scroll saw, unless you are trying, you cannot hurt yourself on a scroll saw. I wouldn't recommend doing this with straight blades because all the teeth are on one side, but on a spiral blade you can sit there and touch the blade. It will not hurt you. I don't recommend just doing this for the heck of it, but you can hear me touching the blade. It does not, unless I'm holding my finger into there, it's not going to hurt me. This is the variable speed I was referring to. This is all the way up. I tend to do mine all the way up, but whatever your comfort level entails, go with that. It goes up to 1700 RPMs. Now that's dang near off, but that's how slow it can go. That is 400 RPMs. I'll slowly turn it up. That's 500 RPMs. 700. 900. 1100. 1300. 1500. 1600. On up to 1700. Now I'm going to get on the side of the saw and show you that cam in action. I decided to put the speed all the way down, that way you could see the cam in action. That's what makes your sawing action. And you can also get a better idea of the bellow being used. I should have done this in the beginning and not showed you everything full speed. I've never used this saw with the speed all the way down. One thing I failed to point out earlier is the spring back here. Now that is attached to the upper and lower arm, and obviously keeps a degree of tension on the arms. Again, some of these parts are specific to the Hegner, but the premise of most of them is universal. Every scroll saw has a tension knob, a tension lever. Not every scroll saw is a variable speed. Some, the older ones, are single speed, which is probably a little faster than this. It's been a while since I've had a single speed. There are many scroll saws out there. Some of the more popular, what they call middle of the road, price-wise, and but good reputations, is the DeWalt 788. It's a yellow scroll saw. Delta has basically a twin to it, but with a different paint scheme. And I don't know right offhand what the model number of that is. This is considered a high-end saw. Another high-end saw would be an Excalibur, and all of these come in different sizes. You check your websites for those. I have seen some questions in the comments, and I'll address those now. This first one's not a question, but a friend of mine pointed out a website that sells what they call outliner discs, and that does the same thing as the washer idea I had. I thought it was an idea I came up with, but it's nice to know somebody else thought of it. I'll put the link for that down in the description. OG Timbercraft asked about the different styles of blades, and that's what the topic of my next video will be. Tony Dethridge asked, do I hand draw my patterns or do I use a program? Well, Tony, it's actually a little bit of both. I draw them on paper, determining what I want to keep, what I want to get rid of, and you'll see that on older videos as to how I do them. But I do scan them onto the computer in order to clean them up and make sure all the lines are connected where they need to be. Tony Weaver asked, how do I attach my work to the backer? And I just use wood glue. Gary McCoy asked if there's such a thing as a spiral blade that has a pin end. Now, for those of you that don't know, the older scroll saws had a little cradle that held the pin on the end of a scroll saw blade, and that would sit in the cradle like this on either side of the blade. That's not a common thing anymore, but there are older scroll saws out there that use pin end blades, and there is a website out there that makes an adapter for that, and I will put that in the description. Now, not every scroll saw is covered, but there are some that can be done. To my knowledge, there's no such thing as a pin and spiral blade. I could be wrong. I'll investigate and let you know, Gary. Rusty Nails wants to know the type of wood and the thickness of the wood I use. Most often it's a Baltic birch ply, and I believe the average thickness is about 3/16. John Schenkel wants to know what size brads I use when I'm stack cutting, and that's how I hold the stacks together. And John, I don't want to lie to you, so I'll have to wait till I get a new set to know the exact size. They're usually on average 1/2 inch or slightly smaller. As far as particular style, I don't recall because I don't buy them very often, but I will try to find that out and let you know in a future video. Now this question is specific to the project he was commenting on, but OG Timbercraft wanted to know what blade I was using. All I've ever used is number 3 and number 5 spirals from Flying Dutchman. That looks to be all the questions I have for now, but feel free to ask me more and I'll address those in a future video. I hope this video helped you some. And if you have any remaining questions, feel free to ask those and I'll be happy to answer them for you. But until then, I appreciate everybody watching. Please like, subscribe, thumbs up, and share. And most important, scroll on.